I don't have anything. Not that I saw.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the February 16th, 2021 council meeting. Call this meeting to order. Please stand and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Jackie, will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Hewlin, here. Parker,
Present.
Kling,
Here.
Schroeder,
Present.
Southall, Marchant,
Present.
Mayor Pepper.
Present. All right, that is away with school conferences tonight, so we wish her all the well with that. And our city attorney is also online tonight with us. And before we get too far along, I want to make sure we have our two mayor youth council members stand up, introduce themselves, tell us some great things about you. We're glad you're here.
Hi, I'm Carly Smith. I'm a senior this year.
I'm Carter Mossad. I'm a junior.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us. We're glad you can be here. They're a great group of kids. If you haven't had the chance to chat with them, please do so. All right, we're moving into open forum. If there's any public comment, anybody want to talk about anything that's not already on the agenda tonight? If so, please fill out a form and please come hand it to Jackie and then please come forward. All right, hearing none, seeing none, we will move on to our consent agenda. I need to apprise the council that we will pull the resolution setting a public hearing for March 23, 2021 for a request from Brad Ross for approval of an amendment to Chapter 165 regarding warehouses at this time. Otherwise, I will take the motion.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay. Jackie, can you call the roll?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. What?
Can I just speak to
Yes, please.
the item that you pulled?
Sure, please.
Charlie had conversations with Mr. Ross. Mr. Ross is going to be withdrawing this application. I think he's going to be going back through the process. He wants to work with staff and continue to work on with the P&Z on this proposal.
Well, that's great. Thanks for the update. Thanks, Charlie, for working with me. All right, next up, City Treasurer's Report. Doug Scholl.
How did you move so fast?
We are quickly here.
I'm still on page one.
I have to make a slight comment before we get started.
Oh, sure.
Talk to Doug about this. The one I just emailed the council, city council and mayor, a copy of the treasury report, slightly different than the one that's in your packet. The only difference that's in it is down at the bottom, you notice that there's a bank adjustment. In the one in the packet, it is positive amount. It should have been a negative amount. So that just changes things just a little bit. So the one that I emailed you is the one that you should be looking at right now.
And Andy, the amount is like $189.
Yes, the 198. It changed the amount that was going to be set aside. A negative amount of $400 for you. That's now gone.
Thanks, Andy, for that update. Appreciate it. All right,
Not
Doug.
realizing that, I will confess that I was going to spend all my time on that 198. Mayor, council members, the report that's in front of you is for September of 2020, which is the third month of the 2021 fiscal year. Again, the last time I was here, I spoke a little bit about how the fund balances are growing, and that's something I firmly believe in. And I think comparing this report to the previous report for September of 2019, they have grown again, so that's good. I'm always amazed at that local option sales tax. It went up almost $1.7 million from last year's September to this year's September. And that's a great thing, because I know you're dedicated that to the new sewer plant. And let's see, I don't know, we do know that in the past, IMU was included in all of our numbers. So when you have this bank balance, and I'm now down in the far left-hand corner of 25 million, if you looked at that a year ago, it's 38 million, and that's because IMU was included in our funds. And I know that we still have about $1.5 million that I think soon will get pulled out of your funds and that are part of IMUs, but Andy spoke to that last time. Only one more thing is, I mean, I know we all know this, but the interest rates a year ago, like at Bankers Trust, were 2.11, and this year it's 1%. You know, the interest rates have really dropped. And the same thing with the sweep account at True Bank. Last year it was 2.4%. This year it's 0.4%. So those rates have really dropped. Yeah, I guess the only other thing would be is the health insurance. It's growing, that fund 820. It's growing just a little bit also, which is good. I think everything is in great shape. That would be my report, subject to any questions about the 198.
Council, questions?
No.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
Move to accept the report.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks,
Thank
Doug.
you.
Appreciate it. We're looking to receive and file the EMS billing activity report for September 2020. Anybody on staff want to talk about that, on that?
Chief Chio is here. Now that they're making great progress on the treasurer's reports. This is the report that the fire department puts out as part of our collections. We do have a third-party biller that performs those, and so this just provides a stamp. What was open, what were those in-network discounts, what's being collected, and where we're at in the process.
Thanks for that update, Ryan. Questions, council? Okay, how about a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. On to council reports. First one is presentation of fiscal year 20 audit by Robert Endres of Denman and Company. He's got his Indian old mask on. We like that.
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. Let me walk through. I think it's about a 70-page report, so everyone pull down and we're now we're going to do this through PowerPoint. It's a daunting document, so we've tried to trim it down to an 8 or 9-page document that hopefully will allow us to hit the highlights here. But I do encourage everyone in the council to read that report. There is a lot of information that won't be able to compile into this short presentation. Just quickly, my name is Robert Endres. I've been working on the audit now for a couple of years. I'm the audit manager. Dave Ellis is the audit partner on the engagement. Myself and one of my colleagues was out, I believe in August this past year, doing the actual field work. And this is the end result of that audit process for the year end of June 30, 2020. We'll go over our independent auditor's report briefly, look at some summarized financial records, talk about controls and statutory compliance, and then there's just a couple more requirements for us to communicate to you as members of governance. To begin with, independent auditor's report, there's a couple of important matters here that I want to discuss with you. First, it's important to remember that these financial statements are those of management. They're not our financial statements. It's management's responsibility to put those together, ensure their accuracy, and ensure that the controls and processes in place are sufficient to ensure the accuracy of those financial statements. Our responsibilities is to perform an audit of those financials and then to express an opinion on those. So we do testing of transactions and balances. We review some control processes as part of that testing procedures. And we are indeed issuing unmodified or clean opinions on cities, cash basis financials for the year ended June 30, 2020. Real briefly here, some financials, just to summarize financial information for you to look at. Total revenues, cash receipts for the year ended June 30, about 26.8 million, up about 4.7 from the prior year. Most of that increase is due to bond proceeds that were received, although you'll see as well that there is general growth in most categories of the city's revenue streams. Expenditures also were up a fair amount, driven primarily again by the bond proceed payoffs and the wastewater treatment plant starting to come on board there as well. This is a quick graph of the city's governmental fund balances, excluding those business types for the moment. Sewer and other business type activities is just the governmental funds. General fund balance of about 8.6 million is being the biggest part of the puzzle there. Local option sales tax as well, a little over 5.7 at fiscal year end. Looking at that general fund balance in a different perspective here, total fund balance, unassigned general fund balance makes up about 300 days worth of expenditures from that fund, which is indeed a quite healthy balance for the general fund. Although it is important to know that some of those funds have been segregated for other causes, such as YMCA maintenance and vehicle replacement. Internal control, we do not test internal controls, but we do review control processes that we try to identify the procedures we're doing through the audit process. And if we identify deficiencies with those internal controls, we do have an obligation to report them. We do have 2 recommendations on control matters related to segregation of duties and credit card usage. These are both very common recommendations that we have for cities the size of Indianola, and staff are making progress on those over the past couple of years. We've been working with them. We did not have any statutory reporting non-compliance as well. So something else I want to commend the city on. Finally, we do have a couple others required communications for governance to consider. There were no changes in accounting policies this year. Accounting estimates are inherent on all financial statements, even cash basis statements like the cities. We do look at those estimates, ensure that they are reasonable and appropriate in the circumstances. And we do feel the same that way this year. We do have a couple of corrections we make to the financials, nothing substantial, and management has made those as well. And no disagreements with management or really other matters that really require the attention of governance at this time. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions on this report.
Please, John.
So with the IMU split, is everything pretty much kosher to where you need it to be, or do we still have a little bit of time to get some of that stuff corrected?
We're well on our way. So
Okay.
The reason I'm here in February and not December is we were working making sure that IMU's balances didn't materially agree with the city's balances. And we got to the point where they were. As Andy will tell you, there's a couple reconciling items that they're still working through, but they're incidental in the city's overall financial position.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for asking that clarification. Other questions, council? Brian?
If there's no questions from our elected officials, just want to compliment Andy and Jackie
Yes.
and Lisa and the staff in the finance department. They run a tight ship. There's a lot of legwork that goes on to prepare for the audit, and certainly Robert and his team. But great job of managing the process and really kind of overseeing everything and making sure we're doing all the things that we need to be doing. And can't say enough about the hard work that they're doing. So
I think council heartily agrees with those comments.
I think it showed just earlier, everybody kind of joked about the 190 whatever, but that shows Andy's concern that everything needs to be right, and I appreciate that. So
and I mean, as Robert pointed out, I mean, this is I think my 20th audit that I've been a part of, and the segregation of duties, which is very common in the credit card stuff. And Andy's taken great steps over the last couple of years to really dwindle that down. And I mean, on Monday we were off, and I got an email from Andy saying, "Hey, we still got one more report that needs to be okayed." So really appreciate their hard work.
And thank you to you, Robert, and your team for all your dedicated work. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, I think we'll let you go if there's no questions. Appreciate you being here. All right, John Parker's got a Greater Des Moines Convention and Visitors Bureau report for us.
Yep. After Greg came down last meeting, but the meeting before, We have had a meeting and pretty much just continuing on what he said. We're still working on budget for this year. Numbers are starting to improve a little bit with people coming to hotels, but it's going to be, we're looking at probably 2022 before we start seeing any market improvement. They are still getting events, a lot of stuff that are still on hold. I think the comment was until we know what happens with all the immunizations, that it may be mid to late summer that we'll start to see maybe a little something, but hopefully in 2022 we can kind of get back to where we're. And it was so sad because he started showing the numbers of where we were a year ago and where things were at, and they were 25% above what we were budgeting a year ago. We were really looking out for having a great year last year, and unfortunately that got put on hold, but such is life. So, but no, everything seems to be going fine. Really increasing in marketing and trying to work on instead of dragging in from all over the country and the world, we're dragging in from Iowa, trying to pull in from Cedar Rapids and just get people to at least travel a couple hours if they can. So.
Yes, thank you, John, for that report, and thanks for serving on that.
Mayor, could I add something?
Sure, you can, Greg.
Well, I just want to also point out and thank the Des Moines Convention and Visitors Bureau for their continued dedication and support of our community. I think it's fantastic how they have continued to reach out and work with not only the city, but other organizations within the city to make them as successful as possible. So kudos to the CVB.
Agreed.
I would agree.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move on to Bob's Metro Advisory Committee.
Metro Advisory met, and there were several items that were discussed, but most of the time was spent on the legislative update, and I sent everybody a copy of that legislative update. And basically that update contained bills that are generally favorable to cities. Well, let me put it this way. The group took these bills and put them in categories, those that are generally favorable to cities, those that are unfavorable to cities, and those that could be positive or negative either way to local governments. And there's several. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll briefly hit on just a few. The first one, which was what we were told was the most important one, which is, and these are favorable, HSB 178, SSB 1142, the governor's omnibus housing bill, and this would increase the workforce housing tax credit for 25 to 50 million for each of the next 3 years, would increase funding for local housing trust funds by removing the current $3 million cap on 30% of funds collected in the real estate transfer tax that would go to the state housing trust fund. And don't ask me any questions about that. Okay, so, but that was the one I wasn't familiar with that. The second one was bill that was introduced would allow for the creation of entertainment districts up to 75 acres in which a 3% surcharge will be placed on event ticket sales along with food and beverage sales. And this bill is modeled on a similar funding mechanism for the Power and Light District in Kansas City. And that was one they figured was pretty favorable. Of all the ones that are unfavorable, here's a couple. Senate File 143 and House File 59. No, excuse me, I forgot the wrong one. Senate File 50 would require that each city and county create a separate board that will be allocated 50% of the hotel motel tax dollars, with all those funds then having to be spent on promoting tourism in that region. And I spoke up and wanted to explain again because I was very concerned, because we already have that money is already allocated, for Bravo, Convention and Visitors Bureau, and then we get our share. And I was concerned what that would do to Bravo. And I texted Sally Dix, the director of Bravo, and she wasn't familiar with this. And luckily she checked into it, and she said from her talks with people, she didn't think this would probably go anywhere. You're talking about 28 agreements that already been signed, years ago and everything else. So didn't think that was going to go anywhere. And I think there'd be quite an uproar over that. So Now, there are a couple that would impact local governments, which could be positive or negative. Or here's one, that could be positive or negative. And HSB 80 and SF 97, this bill would establish a statewide regulatory structure for electric bicycles and would limit the ability of local governments to regulate those devices. Now, I brought that up simply because we're talking about old scooters. And the one thing that was mentioned quite a bit is that a lot of the other cities are really concerned about the legislator doing more and more of taking away local control. And the people in power, these are usually people that always have promoted home rule and local control. But there's a lot of bills that are being introduced that are taking away that would take away local control. So that was basically out of everything that was there was the update.
Questions for Bob? I was in that meeting as well, and I was very proud when Bob asked about Bravo, because that is near and dear to our hearts as well. So thank you for your due diligence. Brian?
Just for those that are watching at home or is sitting in the audience, being a part of the Metro Advisory Committee is helpful for that reason. There's strength in numbers when you're lobbying, when there's legislation that is harmful to communities. A lot of times when there are bills that are harmful, it adds costs, unfunded mandates to communities. So that's one of the reasons why it's important to be involved in those types of things. We do rely heavily on the League of Cities, which is very active in monitoring and communicating out to communities of things that are going to have a direct impact on local government. So it's certainly it's important to be involved and to monitor those things and then reach out to our legislators and keep them aware, because it does have a costly impact, or can have a costly impact on our residents.
So true, so true. And just a reminder that these are in motion, doesn't mean they are
Right,
final
right,
or could
right.
ever make it anywhere past this first reading. So thank you for being there. All right, receive and file the Bravo Greater Des Moines Annual Audit for fiscal year 20. That information was in your packet. Anybody touching base on that one? Okay,
Move to approve. Second.
okay. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. We'll file that away. Next up is mayor's report. Couple things. Just hope you're all staying warm. It's been quite the rough couple of days. Always think of our police and fire who are out battling that, and our streets department. We'll think about them too, having to deal with that cold weather. So thanks for all that you do for us. Last week, I would call it the meetings of Warren County for myself. Had lots of Warren County meetings. Ryan was a part of those with me for some of them. Specifically, the mayor sits on an assessor meeting, and so we had to approve that budget, so did that. And then there was an emergency management meeting, so attended that. Then there was a couple streetscape justice center conversations as well, and it was a part of that. I just want to mention something that I heard at the assessors meeting. They mentioned that taxes, Warren County is saying taxes will rise. We will be getting a letter in April on housing. It is not impacted by COVID at all. The market's out of whack. We're out of whack as Warren County. They also said Dallas County's out of whack. So you'll be getting a notice telling you what your increase will be. There will be a period that you can debate that or question that or chat with them about it. But I just thought I would mention that because I hadn't heard it till then.
Mayor, that the valuations on the properties
Yes.
is what it is.
What did I say?
Property taxes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The-
Thank you.
Yeah, but the valuation will have an impact on property taxes. And I believe what you shared with me when we were talking about this meeting after you had it was that it would, the valuation adjustments that the county assessor would need to do would take place in September, payable September of 2022, I believe.
That is correct.
You said.
Yes. You'll get
So-
notice now.
Doesn't have an impact on the budget that the council would be considering in the next couple of weeks for beginning July 1 of 21 to June 30th of 2022. It would be the budget that we would be preparing next year where this would come into effect.
Thank you, Ryan.
So again, it's a good example of where other jurisdictions, state, we talked about state, but also county, when they do certain things, it does have an impact on what we do.
Absolutely, and that's why I wanted to mention it tonight. We had our second Human and Civil Rights Commission, although we don't have an official commission, we're working towards what does that look like, but we did have a second meeting last week with that group, and very productive. We're working on things that we can incorporate. Maybe that's some information on our website. So that group is working through that, and I'm very excited. Greta has helped spearhead that, so very excited to see where that's going and loving those that are interested. If anybody is interested, let us know. You can always reach out. Like I said, it's not an official committee yet, but you can always reach out to me or to City Hall, and we would happily add you to the group. This Thursday is our third annual contractors breakfast. It will be virtual this year, so kudos out to Charlie and his team. Looking forward to that. We're going to welcome a whole bunch of contractors virtually and show them a few highlights, kind of do a review of what happened this last year and what we think is going to happen in this new year. So looking forward to that. And then the MPO is going to have a policy meeting later this week. I will be there. I will be in attendance. And then February 24th, the mayoral candidates will be talking with the Mayor's Youth Council. So that'll be a fun time to be with them as well. That's the report I have. Happy to answer any questions. Okay. Then in your packet you have seen, we're moving on to a resolution celebrating February 2021 as Black History Month. This is a little bit of coming out of our Human and Civil Rights Commission that we really think we want to call out these kind of months. So I do want to read this because I think this is great for our city to be embracing this if you approve it. So let me just read it so people have a sense of it, and then you guys can vote. A resolution celebrating February 2021 as Black History Month, whereas Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by Black Americans, a time for recognizing the central role of African Americans in U.S. history. And whereas this observance affords a special opportunity to become more knowledgeable about Black heritage and to honor the many Black leaders who have contributed to the progress of our community, state, and nation. And whereas during Black History Month, we celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to our economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development, like Indianola's very own George Washington Carver. And whereas George Washington Carver overcame extreme hurdles to make a range of scientific discoveries and humanitarian achievements, thereby providing extraordinary service to our state, country, and world. And whereas there are countless others who, like George Washington Carver, have and continue to lead us in innumerable ways towards our democratic ideals. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Indianola do hereby celebrate February 2021 as Black History Month in our community and urge all citizens to celebrate the achievements of Black Americans and continue efforts to create a community and world that is more just, peaceful, and prosperous for all. I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Jackie, will you call the roll?
Councilmember Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Merchant,
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks,
Mayor?
Council.
Have you heard anything where we are in the sculpture for Carver?
I haven't heard.
Okay, I was just curious. So you mentioned the name, and I thought it.
Yep.
Okay.
So we put our name to a proposal that some folks are leading to put George Washington Carver in the United States Capitol. We're really hoping that comes to fruition, but no, unfortunately, we don't have an update. So good question. All right, on to community update. First item is consideration of the appointment of Melanie Huntermark, I hope I've said that correctly, to serve on the library board for a term beginning immediately and ending July 1st, 2022. She's filling a vacated role. So, council, if you make a motion.
I'll make the motion, please.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Welcome, Melanie. Glad to have you a part of the library board. All right, we're moving into public consideration. We have lots of public hearings. Get ready. First one is Moats Park restroom. I need a motion to open up a public hearing on the proposed public improvements to Moats Park restrooms. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Jackie, can you call the roll?
Councilmember Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we're in the public hearing, and here comes Doug. He's going to tell us a few things.
Yeah, thank you, council, for having me here today to talk about the Moats Park restroom improvement. Hopefully you've all used the older restroom that's there from the 50s. It's obviously needed. It's obviously one of the most visited parks that we do have, most visible. What we have in front of you is a resolution for the city to purchase a restroom similar from the same company like we have at Pickard Park and we have at the Trailhead. It comes already pre-built, pre-manufactured. And then the contract that you have in front of you would be for a contract with a vendor to install that restroom.
And it's the same vendor that we've used for the previous two?
The previous two we did in-house.
Oh, okay.
And we really don't want to do that.
Understand.
It's just the Public Works, Street Department, IMU, everybody has things going on that this takes into their,
Perfect.
takes them away from their regular job. So
Questions for Doug? Anybody?
How long? The McVeigh Trailhead was the first one we had, right? And we've had that for quite a while.
Geez, it was more than 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's held up really, really well. It's a smart investment. So.
And they're well used.
Yeah,
They're in the
yeah.
right places.
It seemed like they were pretty easy to maintain and keep up on as well.
Yes, very easy to clean up when they get spray painted and
Yeah.
vandalism, and
Yeah.
knock on wood, they don't get broken very easily. So.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Anybody else like to speak about this? Okay, I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, Jackie?
Councilmember Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. So now we're looking at a resolution approving the plans, specs, form of contract, and estimate of costs on the proposed public improvements to Moat Park restroom.
I so moved.
Second.
Okay? Any questions? Jackie, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Kling.
Aye.
Motion carries. So hard to unmute sometimes, isn't it, Glenn? All right, we'll move into a public hearing then on the third budget amendment for fiscal year 21. Anybody want to move to open it?
So moved.
Okay, go ahead.
Heather's got it. Sean,
Second.
you gonna second? All right. Jackie?
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Andy, what do you want to tell us?
Okay, this is the third amendment of the FY21 budget before the council. There's three reasons for having this amendment. The first one is the health insurance internal reserves fund. We already had the expense for the health insurance for the different departments. We do an action where all the departments go through the internal reserves fund. This was not put into the budget. It's mainly just a pass-through action, but it is part of the budget, so it does need to be included. And but it's no added expense. It's just a pass-through action that needs to be included. So we need to amend this into the FY21 budget, and we will include that in the FY22 budget. We did do the refinancing for the 2012B and the 2013B debt series, which we got very favorable interest rates. It's not necessarily a technical and expense for a cash basis city, but when we go to do the audit for the GAAP accounting procedures, we will need to account for those. So we do need to amend those into the budget. And then the replacement of traffic signal controller, we had a unfortunate incident out on at the intersection out here, Highway 92 and Jefferson Way, where the vehicle hit the traffic signal controller at a cost of about $35,000. We had to replace that. We're still working with our insurance ICAP to subrogate that to see if we can get some coverage on that, but we had to replace it as soon as possible. So we did have to expend for that to make sure that was taken care of. Any questions?
Questions for Andy, anyone?
I'll just add that the traffic accident he referenced, there was a fatality, so subrogation is probably not, it's probably not going to be successful, but we are pursuing it.
Yeah, very sad. All right, anybody else want to speak to this? Hearing none, seeing none, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Jackie, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, how about a motion then approving the third budget amendment for fiscal year 21?
So
I so
moved.
move.
Second.
Okay, Jackie, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling.
Aye.
Motion carries. Here comes Andy. Next one is moving into a public hearing on the maximum property tax dollars for fiscal year budget 2022. So can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Jackie?
Councilmember Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Give Andy a second here to connect.
Okay, Mayor and members of council, I'm here to talk about the FY22 budget. On our agenda, we're going to be talking about the maximum property tax dollars, which was the original item on the agenda for this evening. Current fund expenditures and balances for the FY22 budget, property tax levy for the FY22 budget, and then discussion on the civic organization request. You all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the notice of hearing that we had for the maximum property tax dollars. A couple of years ago, the legislature passed a requirement for cities to have an additional hearing. We did this the first time last year, where cities have to notify citizens, taxpayers, that the amount of property difference in the amount of property tax or dollars that are being collected during the current fiscal years, and how that's going to change in the upcoming fiscal year. And if you are collecting the same amount of tax dollars, what your property tax levy would be compared to what it will be that you're planning on for the amount of property tax dollars that you'll be collecting. So you'll notice there's 3 columns here. This is the current year. This is the amount for the valuation that went up. And if you were going to, if we were going to collect the same amount of property tax dollars, so these numbers are the same, this is what the levy would be. And then this is what we're planning on for the FY22 budget. And so we do have an increase in our amount of property tax dollars that we are going to be requesting. However, the levy is going to be lower. So it went from 1275, you go down to 1183, I think that's, or 81. It is going to go down to 1222. So we do have about 3.5% increase in the property tax dollars that the city is requesting. Compared to our neighbors in the metro area, we're lower on the scale as far as the percentage of property tax dollars increase that we will be collecting. So we're the 4th lowest increase in property tax dollars, not including debt service. So that amount of property tax dollars, that's just for the operations, the employee benefits, FICA and IFRS and things like that. It does not include the debt service. So I'll talk about the general fund here by function. You'll notice that most of the columns for the years stay relatively level, except for the first one, which is public safety. As you recall, we're planning on hiring a new rental inspector because of the state mandate. Once we go over 15,000, we're going to have to start rental inspections. So we are planning the hiring of a new rental inspector, code enforcement officer. We're also taking the last step of the council's adopted strategy for public safety staffing and hiring 3 new firefighters, EMS staff. So that's that increase in the public safety. This is the general fund spreadsheet as far as the beginning revenue and expenditure and ending fund balances. For the funds that are shaded in red, those are funds that we have, that the city has a dedicated purpose for, such as the vehicle and equipment fund. For the ones that are not shaded red, those are discretionary, and those have an ending fund balance of 41% of expenditures, which meets the city's fund policy of 25%. Special revenue funds are those funds that are under state requirement or federal requirement are specifically set aside, such as the road use tax fund that has a constitutional amendment that requires that funding to be spent on street funding. That's the only one that we have a policy requirement of 50% ending fund balance. And so we're meeting that at 51%. We are assuming an increase this year due to the census going up. We'll have an increase of about 100,000 in revenue and road use tax fund. Capital projects mostly staying level except for the Square Streetscape. You'll see that most of the spending will be done in the upcoming fiscal year in FY22. And then we'll also be getting started on the engineering for Hillcrest and also for K Street. And this is the spreadsheet for the capital project funds. We did have the only change that I'll have that I did not include in this when I was originally starting this is that we are going to be directing the one-time backfill that we received from the state for it's about 75,000. We are going to be transferring that into the real property improvement fund for economic development. So that's what we're slating that for. Okay, for debt service, our debt service, as you recall, we were planning on a levy of $1.40. That is an increase. However, compared to our neighboring communities in the metro area, we're well below the average debt service levy for our comparables in the metro area. On the debt service, you'll notice that the 3 bars, they indicate the service fee, and then also the interest is in the brown, and then the gray or silver bars are the principal amount. And our principal is going up because we're proceeding with some projects like Square Streetscape, Hillcrest, K Street, where the city is borrowing some funds. But I want you to notice that in the silver bars, how they're increasing, but the brown bars are staying fairly steady. And that's because of the good Moody's rating that we received, and also good financial management that we've been able to secure low interest rates. So we're paying more on principal, getting those projects done, and not paying so much in interest. Business type, this is some graphs for funds not including the water resource recovery facility construction. And so you'll notice that we're remaining fairly level with our business type funds. Sorry about that. This is the recycling, stormwater. Stormwater should be increasing because, as you know, we've done the master plan now. Now we're noticing some of the things that we need to plan for, some of those projects that need to be undertaken. So we'll be noticing that increasing in the upcoming years in FY23. In operations, Rick's been doing a really good job as far as keeping his operations under control, especially with the old sewer plant, keeping that running until we get the new one up online. We've been doing some projects in the capital area as far as upgrading the lift stations to make sure that they're online for the new sewer plant, but also putting in the Quill Meadows lift station for new residential growth. But next year we'll be dropping that down a little bit. And then this is the sinking fund. The sinking fund is another term for where the SRF loans are managed. You'll notice that we're going up in cost here because we're paying back the SRF loans for the sewer plant plus also the lift stations. But that's being offset by the revenue, but also by the lookups and sales taxes we have planned. This graph just shows the increase in the sewer plant construction that we're doing. So, and then graphically, this is the beginning revenue, expenditures, and ending fund balances for the business funds. The ones, the storm sewer and the recycling we have 25% ending fund balances, so we're meeting the fund balances for that. And then on the internal service funds, we do have a fund balance policy for health insurance. That's 6 months of expenditures prorated on 2 years of experience. So I know the council is going to be meeting with the IMU Board of Trustees on March 10th to discuss our plan for upcoming year as far as our expected expenditures and our fund balance on that. And so, and then discussing our property tax levy for next year, you'll notice that the rollback percentages, there is an increase for single family residential. That's something that the state controls. The city does not have any control over that. We also don't have any control over valuations that the county has placed on properties, but we are seeing an increase in the amount of taxable value on a house, single family residential, going from 55% to 56.4%. Commercial industrial staying the same, and then we're seeing the continual lowering of the multifamily residential valuation, taxable valuation, and that'll continue. I know there's a bill this year to do away with the multifamily classification, and they're just going to have the residential classification. So that's when the multifamily comes down to the residential, and so we'll be notice a large loss of taxable valuation, not as much as some larger cities, but we will notice a loss of taxable valuation for the multifamily residential. So we plan to keep the levy the same from FY21 to FY22. You'll notice the differences in the city in the taxes for the city. Should your home values remain the same? Small increase, no increase for commercial and industrial, and then large decrease for multifamily. So that brings us to the civic organization request. This is something I presented to the council previously. You'll notice that these are the requests that have been made by the civic organizations. We are assuming that we will be collecting 150,000, which is back to normal. Hopefully we'll be close back to normal come the middle of the year, and having 150,000 in hotel motel tax revenue collection. 25,000 of that goes to Park and Rec, and then we have Bravo and CBB, which is our 28E partners that receive 2/7 revenue of that. 2/7 part of that 150,000. So. That leaves the 39,286 of hotel motel tax revenue that's available for those civic organization requests. So I'll just leave it there and open it up for discussion among the council.
Well, I'm gonna, if that's okay. First of all, I'd like to give everybody everything they've asked for and more, but unless somebody's got a scratch off ticket that's gonna help do that, that's not gonna happen. The one request, I would like to be able to stay, I would like to not dip into the reserves. we're just keep it at the 50,000. 40. Or was it 4? I mean 40. It used to be, yeah, 40,000. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Really quick, just from a procedural standpoint, the public hearing for the discussion and direction, that's the next item on the agenda. So suggest, yeah, have any sort of public hearing, any public comments regarding the presentation. And then I would recommend close it, and then you can get into the discussion and direction on these items.
Questions for Andy on all that he presented? Thank you. Lots of work, lots of information.
Mayor, if there's nothing, I know that for those in the audience and then those watching at home, the budget process starts in typically July for us. We break that out and we have a series of meetings with you all at the council meetings, and it's kind of built on each other, where it's a lengthy process broken down into manageable pieces. And just a couple of things that I want to point out. Andy's got a couple slides, and we'll share this as we normally do. But the property tax levy, it's important to note that we are able to keep the property tax levy flat because of the growth that we've had in our community, especially over the last 5 years, nearly $200 million of valuation. But then also to Andy and his team on how they're managing things like TIF, the refinancing of debt, that certainly helped. You mentioned earlier the favorable interest rate we got. So for Streetscape, it was under 1%. When we refinanced some other debt, it was 0.83%. Andy alluded to that with the graphs and paying down more principal. So, I mean, those are some of the things that allow us to do what we're doing. And when you think about the big impacts on this year's budget, rental inspection program, that's a state mandate. We have to do that. We have to do that. Once we hit 15,000, state says you have to put this program in. So that program cost is going to cost us about $100,000. And then the 3 firefighters, this completes, as Andy mentioned, the phase-in plan. So in 2017, the city council did a study of our police and fire staffing levels. In 2018, they approved a plan to phase this in. This is the last set of hires. So this would bring our firefighters up by 6. That in itself, what Andy, is it 500 or 700,000?
I think it's fine.
$500,000. So roughly about and this is ballpark figure, roughly about $600,000 being added in, and we're able to pay for it because of the growth.
Right.
So this is pretty impressive. And when you look at our comparables, what the communities around us are doing from their property tax levy, we're much lower than they are. From the debt service levy, we're much lower than they are. So in terms of being able to accomplish the goals that have been established, we're doing that through growth, good management, the establishment of the priorities, but working those plans. So, I mean, that's something that I hope the community is proud of. The bond rating from Moody's, we're better than most of our peers. The budget award, all that comes in and is allowing us to do what we're doing today. So it's pretty incredible.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah, the one comment that I would add to that is that I know the council decided to move forward with the staffing study a couple years ago, but those 3 firefighters are desperately needed in a growing community like we have. They are getting more and more. One of the benefits side benefits of being in the same building with them is that you get to see how busy they are. And they've been extremely busy, especially here lately. So that staffing is needed. So money well spent.
Anybody else want to talk in this public hearing about this? I'll take a motion to close the public hearing then.
So moved.
Second? Second. Okay. Jackie, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Kling,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin. Aye. Parker.
Aye.
Motion carries. Excellent. So now let's spend some time discussing and directing regarding the civic funding request for the fiscal year 22 budget. The staff needs some answers, so where are we putting these?
I would agree with Bob's comment. I don't really want to dip into reserves either. I would like to stay within the 40 or close to.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Okay,
Yeah, I do not want to go above 40,000, and I think there's some numbers on some of these that makes a lot of sense as I've looked through them. And one of the things I want to reemphasize is I think we had maybe 2 new requests this year, but everybody else, we shared last year that we were going to honor our commitments in the COVID year, but we didn't know if we would have anything to give them in this fiscal year. And the way it turns out, I think we're going to be able to give them some dollars towards the benefit of their entities. But I think people need to start realizing too that when we throw out something like we might not be able to do anything, when you come back in and ask for more than 4 times what you got the prior year, I think you need to take a step back and try to figure out how you could work with the city on some of these things. So one of the things that I would like to throw out to propose to council, maybe I'll do it in other business, to talk a little bit about this process, but I'm definitely on the no more than 40,000 period.
I'm there as well. When I turn mine in, I stay within the 40,000, and I don't have any interest in going over that. I agree with what Greg said. I've been bringing it up as much as he has, and almost every time that we did tell them, and Andy would always confirm, yes, we sent that letter, so they know, the ones that have asked in the past. So I do think it's something that we need to tighten up and stay within our means. And I would agree with Greg that maybe at another time we kind of need to look at how we're handling this going forward. Maybe put some more of the controls and stuff on this. I've kind of viewed this always as one-time monies for projects that they're working on or whatever. And so that's why I just want to make sure that we're thinking about that, and they're thinking about it as well. So.
Andy, on the updated report you sent us, it looks like the average of everything that all of us put in together still has us like 2,000 over. And I think what I'm hearing is everybody saying they'd like to stay within the 40. So do you need direction from us on how to do that, or will you just take it all off in an evenly manner, or?
Yeah, if there are some
How
that
does that-
are
how does
closer
that- how to
compared to
proceed?
others that are not, maybe try and
Yes,
pull it together. So, I'm
That's up to
flexible.
us. I think that's up to us to make that decision.
Okay.
No, that's true. That's
In my opinion, I
that's
don't know.
that's
Others, the 2 on Zoom, what are your guys' thoughts? I guess 1 now. Do we lose Gwen?
Yeah, Gwen's texting me, her coverage is down,
It
so.
looked like it. Yeah. Greg, what are your thoughts on that? You think we should be the ones taking care of this?
I think, what I would throw out to everybody is we've had some requests. We've got, let's see, at least 3 requests, if I remember right, for $10,000. And out of a sense of fairness, I halved them. I put them each at 5,000.
I did too.
I did.
The Dollars for Scholars and the Indianola Concert Association, both the 500s, I left them.
Yep, me too.
The Greater Des Moines Partnership, because of our ongoing commitments of working with them, I left them at 7,500. The ICYF Helping Hand, that 5,000, they requested 5,000, but that is the balance of our commitment that we made to them. So I left it at 5,000. The Keep Indianola Beautiful, That's kind of like one of our city organizations, if you will. And as far as what they do, also in preparation for streetscape, I left them at 6,000. That was their request. Let's see, the county fair, I believe they got 2,250 last year. They requested 10,000, and I put them at 2,500.
I did as well, yeah.
Heel House requested 7,500. They're a new entity this year, and I believe we really needed to do something for them, and I put them at 3,000. And the chamber requested 7,000. I put them at 5,000. And am I missing somebody? Oh, Herta, I thought their request for $36,000 was totally out of line without having approached us on, any cooperative efforts. I put them at 0. Herta does some nice things in the community, but until we have some conversations with them, I don't feel comfortable giving them anything. And unless I've missed somebody, that should total the 40,000.
Yeah, I was pretty close on that as well, Greg. I too did not have anything for Herta as well. Basically the same thing. They came and gave us they came and did a presentation, oh gosh, what, 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago, I don't know, it was quite a while, and then we never heard anything more, and then all of a sudden we get a request for 36,000. I was not interested in doing anything there. Again, I agree with you, Greg. I see them around town. I know they're doing some things, but I don't know what. What is it what really can you do with our, for our citizens? And I pretty much had most of your numbers. I was, $100 here or there. So kind of with what you had.
Okay, Greg, I was close on some years. I had some of the biggies a little bit more, but I do like I like what you've done. I mean, the others are pretty close. I would go ahead. I would vote along with what you have. I mean, if Andy, that makes a difference.
We're currently adding up Greg's numbers.
Oh.
Just picking them.
Mine were slightly different, but others I was right on. So.
Robert left because otherwise he could have it on.
Jackie, you need Greg to hit those amounts in the order that are on the screen. Is that helping? Okay. Give you a second to add. Thank you, Council, for going through this. It's not easy.
No.
Yeah. And it's nice that we are trying to do all we can to help our partners.
Well, like John said, there needs to be a way to rate them or a parameter somehow, something so it seems like it's an extremely fair process. And
What I was going to throw out later in other business, I might as well throw it out now. But I think if council would give some latitude, I'd like to put this on one of our executive committee meetings to work up an option or two on how we take a look at this in the future, and then bring it back to council for discussion and see if we can hit on some things that maybe make some sense.
Yeah.
I would appreciate that. Some structure, some sort of metrics would be much better than this process.
Right?
Yeah, and I think from everything of how the process goes to, is it a percentage of the dollars that are left, how do we have it to where there's some control in this, so it's just not willy-nilly. I know the last couple of years we were spending over what we had in there, and that's not something I was interested in doing in the future. So.
Right. Okay, so
I'm gonna read out there.
that'd be great. So Sam, please put that on the executive committee agenda for us to discuss. All right, Andy, just
so I'm
double
just-
check these.
Okay, I'm just confirming these, 5,000 for Des Moines Metro Opera, 500 for Concert Association, Keep Indianola Beautiful, 6,000. National Balloon Classic, 5,000. Indianola Chamber, 5,000. Greater Des Moines Partnership, 7,500. ICYF, 5,000. Warren County Fair, 2,500, and Dollars for Scholars, 500. And then 2,000 for Heel House.
I think he said 3,000 for Field House.
Hey,
It's 3,000, isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
3,000.
Yep. 3,000.
And what is that then total?
40.
It is 40 even.
Mhm.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
would borrow a little bit from our reserve. Okay.
Okay.
Council feel good about that? Questions, thoughts?
I support that.
Yep. We
Andy,
need to make a
you got a
official.
sense?
We don't need to have an official vote on that, right? You just need a direction.
Just direction.
Okay.
Perfect.
You'll make the official vote.
Right.
This is incorporated into the budget.
Yep.
This is the last piece in the budget process. Or last direction we need, so you'll vote on it officially as part of the budget.
Okay.
I don't know if there's any questions that the council and mayor, if you have any for me, over what I presented this evening. I will let you know that, part of the process, we do have another, hearing that we have scheduled for, March 1st for the maximum property tax dollars. And then we, are going to, propose that we have March 15th as the date for our, public hearing for the FY22 budget. That's Monday, March 15th.
And that would be a special meeting just to approve that,
I
is what
think,
we're thinking, yes?
Yes.
Okay,
It's a great day. That's probably the best day of the year, actually.
I think so.
Yeah.
Any particular reason, John?
Maybe we should have some cake.
Andy, I do have one question. The backfill that's going into economic development, was that 75 or 90,000? What did you say?
75,000. It depends on, they say that they're fully funding it, but sometimes it only gets funded to 90%, or it depends on what
So that's-
percentage
okay.
actually gets funded at.
Okay.
We normally choose a low percentage, but we're anticipating 75,000 into the general fund.
Super. Yep. Good. Thank you.
All right, other questions? Otherwise, we'll move into setting that resolution, setting that public hearing. You ready to move into that? I need a motion to a resolution to set a public hearing on the maximum property tax dollars for the city of Indianola's fiscal year 2022 budget.
So moved. For the second.
Okay? Jackie, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries. Staff, if you'll just let us know when that special March 15th meeting will be, what time, that would be great. Thank you. We're not done with public hearings. Here comes our next one. I need a motion to open up a public hearing on the authorization of a loan and disbursement agreement and the issuance of notes to evidence the obligations of the city thereunder.
So moved.
Second.
Jackie?
Councilmember Klein,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. So we're in a public hearing. Anybody here want to talk about this topic? Andy does.
This is the 100,000. I'm sorry, you don't have my agenda. I don't have my agenda. This is the 100,000. Okay, so as part of the 2017 SRF loan document, the city of Indianola participated in the sponsor project for the pavers that you'll see in the alleyways for Clinton Street. This was part of the Clinton Street project, where that block between Clinton and Howard was reconstructed, and then we put those pavers in there for stormwater control. That's part of a sponsored project that we can use as a grant from the SRF loan that was done in 2017. So it's part of that project. And then another thing that Akilish Powell, our Public Works Director, checked into was getting an attachment for the street cleaner that will help keep those pavers clean, but also the pavers that are going to be in the square streetscape in the downtown. So that's what this is for. It's to finalize that amendment for the 2017, and that's going to be the next action that the council will consider as well for that amendment of that SRF loan.
So this is all grant revenue.
Yep. Anybody else want to talk about this during this public hearing? Okay. How about a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Jackie, please.
Councilmember Klein,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, well then let's do a resolution instituting proceedings to take an additional action for the authorization of a loan and disbursement agreement and the issuance of not to exceed $100,000 sewer revenue capital loan note.
So moved as you read.
Second.
Okay, questions, comments? Jackie, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kling,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, how about a resolution amending the original resolution approved on November 6, 17? Said resolution approving and authorizing a loan and disbursement agreement with the Iowa Finance Authority and authorizing and providing for the issuance of sewer revenue capital loan notes, Series 2017, in order to provide for the funding of a sponsored project under the term of a new Series 2017 note in the principal amount of $3,141,701.95, which includes approval of a supplemental tax exemption certificate.
Moved as read.
Second.
Okay, comments? Jackie, call the roll.
Councilmember Kling,
Aye.
Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. And how about a resolution approving and authorizing a form of loan and disbursement agreement by and between the city of Indianola, Iowa, and the Iowa Finance Authority, and authorizing and providing for the issuance and securing the payment of $15,274,000 taxable sewer revenue capital loan notes, Series 2021, of the city of Indianola, Iowa, under the provisions of the Code of Iowa, and providing for a method of payment of said notes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay?
If I may, Mayor.
Yes, please.
This is the second round for the water resource recovery facility. The revenue note that will be considered for the facility. And then, as you know, we have the third round next year that will be offset with the adoption sales tax.
Thank you for that update, Andy. All right, Jackie, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Kling.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mayor,
Ryan?
just, I need to call Councilman Schroeder, so it's gonna,
Yep, take a second.
Sorry.
We will gladly bring her back in.
Mayor. 226, page 226. Previous page. Is it called there on there because?
I don't know, let's look it up.
It could be technical.
all right, I will continue to try to. keep it.
Perfect,
Sorry.
thank you, we appreciate that.
I think that's
Here
what
comes
Andy had in
AP,
mind.
I think he wants to talk about a dump truck for the Public Works Department.
Yeah, so you have two items here. One is to join a cooperative purchasing system, which is a nationally recognized purchasing system, which allows us to skip the process of bidding requirements because they have already completed that process. So this is another channel which is called Buy Bold. The city is already a part of similar programs such as Houston Galveston Area Council, Sourcewell. So this is another platform that we will allow us to purchase equipment from. The other item is to purchase a truck or replace a truck, an existing truck, which is a 2007 international model single axle truck, which has met its service life. So we are replacing this as a part of the capital plan, council approved capital plan. The purchase amount is $181,000 roughly. They will trade in $20,000 for the existing truck. So the purchase amount, the final amount that we'll be paying is about $161,000 for this truck.
With a 14-year life
Yeah,
on the
generally,
old one, that's pretty amazing.
yeah, generally trucks can last 10 to 12 years depending the use we get. It's pretty severe, especially in the winter. It's used all year long, so construction activity, so it gets used up pretty hard.
And this is one of we've had, during the snow season, one of our trucks has broken down a couple times. And so the truck that we're purchasing would replace that.
Yep.
And that's important because when you think about a truck breaking down, you've got the cost to repair it, but then in the middle of a snowstorm, our crews are working on plowing the streets. Now this takes more time so we need to have these operational vehicles. So it's under budget. That's a good thing. And our crews do a really good job of taking care of their vehicles. And
Thank you.
that's why we're on this. We've got a CIP. So.
Yep. Questions for AP before we move into motions?
Thank you.
Thanks, AP.
Thank you.
How about a resolution authorizing membership in the by-board cooperative purchasing system?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, Jackie, please.
Councilmember Schroeder. Aye. Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries. Glad to have Gwen back. All right, how about a resolution authorizing the purchase of a new single axle dump truck for the Public Works Department in an amount not to exceed $161,103.81.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Jackie, please.
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Klein,
Aye.
Schroeder. Aye. Marchant,
Aye.
Hewlin.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, under other business, first item, city manager's report. Brian Wooler.
So we, last meeting, we had asked for some additional time so we could talk to some of our external partners. And when we did that, we asked that it be postponed to this meeting. We're still, we had great interaction, great feedback, we provided them with a lot of kind of education as well. So we need to make some minor tweaks. I think some of the stuff's on the sewer department. So we just need to postpone it. I think we should be ready for the next meeting, right? So we just want to make sure it was on there because we'd asked last meeting. So just a continuation.
So do we need to have a motion to table it till?
Motion to postpone to the March 1st meeting, please.
I'll make that motion. Postpone to the March meeting. Please and thank you.
Because she said please and thank you.
Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, I would. So over the last 3-4 years, the city has been looking at the staffing levels for police and fire. Once we had that at the end of 2017 and 2018, we started looking at our facilities, specifically this facility here. So that's been 3 years. There's been a number of presentations before the city council, some options. We got some direction. In October of 2019, the direction was to explore having the library and city hall combined at the library site, and then just completely redoing this site for police and fire. As part of the budget for this year, we had funding in there to bring on an architect. We did that in a partnership, you recall, a couple meetings ago. The city council approved the contract, and the partnership was with the library board to go through and select OPN architects. So last week, we shared a virtual tour of the different sites for the community. And then we've since released a community survey to the community, trying to get the vision input from the community so the architects can put together some renderings that we can then go out and continue to have more engagement with the community. So this is more of a reminder that those links are out there. We're asking the public to assist us in providing their input on the vision for these facilities. We'll be obviously advertising that again this week on the weekly update and social media and elsewhere. But I think the council will recall as part of those reports, we've got some mechanicals that are they don't train people on how to fix them anymore, so very costly, very outdated. But the big driver for especially our public safety folks is there's not enough space in this facility to house what they have currently, but also what is needed in the future. And the example that I've used multiple times is that I think it was last winter, somebody fell through the ice at Banner. Our firefighters got the call, suited up, jumped in the rig. They had to go to the building just north of here, open up the door with their keys and get the equipment that they needed, hook it up, go up to the building, another building that they have equipment stored, hook it up there, and then head up north to Banner to save this person's life.
Slows down the process.
Yeah, so when our officers, police and fire have to go to multiple sites in a time of emergency, that's not good. So that's one of the main reasons why we're pursuing what we're pursuing.
Please, please, please fill out those surveys. We would greatly appreciate all of your feedback. So thank you for calling that out, Ryan. Anything else you'd like to share?
That's it.
Okay,
If I could add something to what Ryan said.
sure.
The virtual tour, as good as it is, doesn't really demonstrate how bad our facilities are. And it's a shame we're in a COVID world right now, because nothing would be better than to bring as many people as we could in to look at all of the problems that we have, not only in the building you're in tonight, but the library as well. So I ask people to please take a look at the virtual tour, and then realize that, public safety, the library, the administrative staff for the city are working in some pretty poor facilities and pretty poor conditions. So please take some time to really get in there and look at this. And as the mayor said, please fill out your survey. This is a very, very important project that we need to do to maintain, actually not even maintain, to get a quality of working environment that our employees deserve, and so that they can be responsive to the needs of the community. So please take time to do that, folks.
On top of that, I'm gonna mention, God, I don't know, it's been 10 years ago, but the last time the city was considering a bond issue for fire department, and it was at least 10 years ago. And that was the first time I had a chance to really tour, and I was ashamed and at how close things were. You could barely open up the doors. And then a couple of years ago, I took a tour of the Norwalk fire station, and my jaw just about dropped because of the size and the room and everything else. So this is something we really are in badly need of, so.
Yeah, going through the council orientation when I first came on, it was real eye-opening.
Yeah.
You don't know that just being a resident, you don't understand unless you're probably staff, and seeing this on a day in and day out basis. And as Greg said, that it's a good job they did on the virtual tour. It doesn't lend hand real well to really point out all the problems in the facilities and the maintenance issues that are being dealt with, and that just gets more and more expensive. So it's better that we're handling. I'm actually proud that we're taking care of those things. It's unfortunate they weren't taken care of before, but definitely necessary.
Okay, thanks, Council. All right, we need to receive and file the correspondence from January 29th and February 5th, 2021, weekly updates from the city manager, Ryan Waller.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We can take a motion to adjourn. And before we do that, just a reminder, we are moving into council study. This is our second meeting of the month, but we'll take a 5-minute recess for bathroom breaks, and then we will come back to that. Is there a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We stand in adjournment for 5 minutes and then back to council study.
Yeah.
Thank you, council.
Yeah.
We're about ready to get
Door
ready
lock, I
here,
would've
so
been
let's move
welcome.
into council study meeting, February 16th. Our agenda item tonight is presentation on the status of the water resource recovery facility. There's our good friend, H.R. Green. Welcome back.
Thank you. Jim Rasmussen here. Thanks, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to give an update on the construction. It's cold out there, and so it's not a good place to be right now. But before we get started, I want to make sure, and you know, Joe works daily on the issues that happen on the project. Jim is our resident observer, Jim Main. You haven't seen him around. He's out there all the time in the trailer and handling the issues on the front line, and we really appreciate his involvement. And of course, Rick handles all the issues and the interface where we have to have decisions and questions and things, and he's done a fabulous job keeping up. So really got a great team out there. I want to start just kind of an overview. You know, these were the tenants that we really kind of built the plant on, and an innovative approach selected specifically for the city. Reliable, flexible, easy to operate wastewater treatment facility with room for future growth. Water resource recovery facility located in the hill with more separation and hidden from view. And again, that's that good neighbor thing that we've been pushing the whole time. Nutrient removal that meets the Iowa nutrient strategy and low biosolids producing technologies. You know, that's part of the design, and peak flow treatment. That's the first of its kind in Iowa. So we're handling peak flows, you know, as they come. We're not storing them and trying to handle them later. So there's some things there as well. I want to jump to construction schedule and talk a little bit about that. So you'll see the original construction schedule here, you know, notice to proceed in February, substantial completion April 1st, final completion April 1st, 22, final completion scheduled for June 10th of 22. Those two items were changed by a change order. That was one of the first ones that was due to the environmental clearances and the delay we had in the environmental clearances, if you remember that. So ever since then, those dates haven't changed. We haven't had any other change orders that affected those dates. So again, final completion is planned right now for July 9th of 2022. There is a 2-year warranty period that we help Rick and identify issues with equipment and work with the manufacturers to get that fixed for a 2-year period, which is great. It's kind of that kick the tires and try stuff out and make sure it works kind of thing. I want to touch a little bit on progress payments. So we've had 8 pay requests so far, and the total work completed and stored is approximately 30% of the contract. So again, you look at that, and Joe's got a whole bunch of photos he's going to talk through and look at the progress, but it's a lot of concrete in the ground. So you don't see a lot of progress until the buildings start coming up, and spring will come and eventually, and we'll have a tour out there and kind of give you more of a boots on the ground tour as well. The work completed is about 23%. So there's a little bit of money that's tied up in stored materials still that we're careful watching. And the total time spent has been 40%. So you look at that right away and you say, Williams Brothers Construction might be behind schedule. They are behind schedule, but their current progress schedule is that they'll meet the completion of the project within the deadline. So we're not alarmed yet, but there's still some things they got to catch up with. They have formally requested a time extension, or at least a placeholder for a time extension due to the winter conditions that we're going through now, severe cold and snow, the lost days of work. So we'll have to evaluate that when they provide more detail to us. And that's coming, and we'll keep you posted of that. One of the things that we look at when you talk about construction projects is change orders. And obviously the goal all the way through is to control those change orders and keep that to a minimum. You know, there's projects of this type that are 4 to 6% of the overall bid amount in change orders. And we will certainly want to avoid that. Our goal is 1% change orders on this project. We've had 3 change orders that 2 of them have been processed. The third one's going to go on the March 1st council for discussion. That one, through those 3 project change orders, we're at a $44,000 deduct from the original contract cost. So, you know, knock on wood, we're doing a good job keeping those costs back and really taking a lot of scrutiny to evaluate any items that come up in a change proposal process. One last slide I have, and then I'll turn it over to Joe. This is by the numbers. This is when we kicked off the project. We talked about some of these. There's 120,000 cubic yards of excavation on site. About 80% of that is complete. The remaining part will be the backfill brought back in when the structures are completed. We've got about 100 miles of wire in the project, which seems just incredible. Hardly any of that's been complete, just because that's a later activity in the progress schedule. We've got 15,000 cubic yards of concrete. About a third of that is complete. And we'll talk about that because there's one major structure that is a big chunk of that concrete that they're making good progress on. And 8.1 miles of piping throughout the project. And there's about a third of that may be complete. And again, those are just approximations and not final by any means. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joe and we can start talking about some of the photos.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having us. I'm Joe Franco, project engineer. Been working on this one for a long time, so it's been fun to watch it come to fruition. What I wanted to do is kind of start going through some of the structures that they've made the most progress on. There's 12 buildings and 9 structures on the project, so there's a lot. We're going to focus on 5 or 6 of the buildings and structures that they've really done a lot to date. So the first one, the way I want to do it is kind of start off by showing what the end product will kind of look like. So to kind of give you a background of what they're building towards, and then kind of show the progress of where they're at. First one is the oxidation ditch, and that's what Jim mentioned. We have 2 oxidation ditches. It's by far the biggest structure. It's over half of the concrete on the project is just in these oxidation ditches. It's kind of a funny shape. We can call it a racetrack shape, and what these oxidation ditches do is it's the first stage of the secondary treatment. It's where all the biological activity takes place, where the organics are removed and oxidized. So that long racetrack shape gives it a lot of detention time, makes it a much more stable process. You have less solids that are generated, so it's a great technology. This is the status. This is kind of an aerial. So we have one of our operators who flies a drone and periodically fly a drone to kind of get a firsthand look down at these structures, which kind of gives us a unique perspective. This is kind of a recent picture of the oxidation ditches. Like I said, there's 2 of them. Most of the outer walls and the floor slab have been done at this point. Over half of the concrete. They've really focused a lot of their energy on these 2 structures. The inner walls still need to be done. There's still, maybe 40% of the concrete and a lot of the equipment and electrical needs to be done, but they've made quite a bit of headway on these structures so far. This is another kind of ground level picture. This is looking at the west side. So bottom part of this picture is the west side. It's where the influent pipes come in. One of the cool things about this picture is it shows those cages of rebar and this concrete. It seems like a ton of rebar. We always get the comment, what are we building the bank vault here? And the deal is, so for environmentals, we call them environmental structures that are water holding, they can't leak at all. And when concrete cracks, it can have leakage issues. So for this concrete, there has to be water stops at all the joints. There has to be a lot of rebar to counteract all the temperature and shrinkage movement that happens in concrete. There's a very low water to cement ratio to make it a strong mix, and there's a full 7-day water cure. So it ends up being a very strong product that can resist any cracking and hold water for 50, 60 years plus. So that's the oxidation ditches. The next structure I wanted to cover is the peak flow treatment. This kind of just shows what that building will be. So this is one of the really cool things about your project. This is really the first one in the state of Iowa. When there's a wet weather event, that wet weather that's more dilute will be diverted to this building. And we have 2 of these, what they're called cloth media filters. And they remove a lot of those heavy materials from the waste stream and route it around the biological system. So you get a lot more bang for your buck in these types of systems. This kind of shows the style of skid. There's the cloth filters are actually in those metal skids. And those are actually all installed within a pre-engineered metal building. So that's what it will kind of look like, and when it's all said and done. This is a picture where they're at. They just set those skids today, actually. I wish I had a more recent picture. So we have those 2 kind of blue skids that they set on these 2 concrete pads that they're pouring there. This building is kind of a split level building, so the big tall skids go in the bottom part, and then I'll get to the top part here. The other part of this peak flow building is we have chemical feed systems in there. So the Indianola plant will be dosing ferric chloride to precipitate out total phosphorus, which is an Iowa nutrient strategy. And we'll also be dosing micro C, which is a supplemental carbon to help with the denitrification and the oxidation ditches. These containment areas where the chemical is, it's a very corrosive, especially the ferric. So you have to contain it with, you can see those walls and the tanks are inert, so they don't have a reaction with that chemical. This is kind of a close-up picture of the chemical area in the peak flow building that they've already built, the concrete walls that contain all those chemical tanks and chemical pumps. And there's actually, it's kind of like a building within a building because it's a hazardous rating. So we build a 3-hour kind of masonry shell within that overall pre-engineered metal building to segregate that part of the building from the rest of the building. So that's the peak flow treatment building they made some good progress on. The next one is grit building. So grit, the big thing there is the second process in the whole plant. And the gravel and the rocks and the sand and the wastewater can tend to cause damage to pumps and equipment, and it takes up detention. So you try to get that out right away if you can. What we're doing, this is again what it'll kind of look like, similar when it's all said and done. There's these grit vortex units, which are on the right side of this building here. There's not an overall building over top of them. The wastewater goes into these vortex units, and the lighter organic material stays in suspension, and the heavier grit is able to settle out, and you can remove the grit. Inside the actual masonry building here, you have a lower level and an upper level. We have grit pumps that pull that grit out of the grit vortex units on the lower level, and then grit washers, so those pumps will pump it up, and the grit is all washed, the organics are washed off of that, and then you have a very clean end product that you can landfill. So this is an aerial view of what that grit building kind of currently looks like. It's a little bit further along than this now, but similar to that last picture, you have on the left side here the enclosed building where you have the 2 levels. Down here will be the grit pumps that suck the grit out of these grit vortex units. And then there will be an upper level that's enclosed in a masonry building. That's where the grit washers will be. And on the right side, you have the 2 circular grit vortex units where the grit actually settles out. These are the influent pipes, and then there's 2 separate units. And then from here, flow under normal conditions will go to the oxidation ditches for biological treatment. And then when you have a heavy wet weather event, flow goes through this pipe and goes to the EQ tank, which eventually goes to the peak flow treatment. So that's where the count of flow split happens there.
So is the grit at our current facility, is that the first building you come to as you're coming down the lane right there? Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you say vortex, so they're bringing the water in and spinning it, is that what it's
basically,
doing?
yeah. So that's what this kind of shows. There's kind of these turbine blades in there that kind of impart that centrifugal motion, which keeps those organics in suspension. And then they're designed so that heavier kind of sand and gravel is able to settle out. It's a pretty small footprint. I think ours are 10-foot diameter. So the grit all settles out, and then you just suck it out with those grit pumps. So this kind of shows, again, this is another plant that will be similar, what ours looks like, what the Indian Oil plant looks like. This is showing those grit channels that lead up to those circular vortex units. So, again, flow is going to come in, and then it'll start its centrifugal processor there, and the grit will settle out. So we have 2 of those in this building. Next building that they made some progress on is the ultraviolet disinfection building. This is way overkill compared to what you guys will have, but it kind of shows so the UV, the basis of that is basically all the flow flows through these bulbs, and which emit UV radiation, which deactivates all the pathogens. This is the last step before it's discharged into the receiving stream or river in our case. So there's a period in Iowa where you have to disinfect wastewater, and flow will just go through there. This is an aerial picture of the current UV disinfection building that they've done for your plant. And the difference between this and the last picture is this whole area where the UV is all enclosed in a building, which will make it much better for operations and maintenance. This area here is where the actual UV banks will sit. So the flow will come in on this side, will flow through those UV banks, the pathogens will be deactivated, and then it'll go out to the middle river. Here's where your W3 pumps, so you'll be pumping that clean, disinfected water so you can use it in other areas in your process, and then for wash down and eventually for the irrigation line for the golf course. And then the rest of this is basically for maintenance. Your pumps will sit over here, and there's a big electrical room. These UV banks take a lot of electrical power, so there's a pretty good sized electrical room in those.
So I'm guessing those bulbs have to be changed at some point, or
They do. I think they usually have between a 5 and 10 year life to them. So
Good job.
yeah, they've got a system that continually, like periodically, intermittently wipes them. So
Oh, really?
so it keeps them clean that way. Otherwise, if a lot of the organics build up, it's baked on with the UV lights, and then you have an issue. But the new designs all have those that are intermittently washed to kind of elongate their life.
Wow.
So definitely, probably the most efficient way to disinfect. There's like chlorine and other ways you can disinfect, but UV is really popular at this point. And then this is just a picture of that same building, ground level picture. So the UV channels over here, your W3 pumps will be sitting here. The electrical room is over here, and all of the electrical cables that go to these, instead of having conduits and a bunch of wires throughout this building, they all go down through this trough. There's a plate that sits over that, so it's a nice way to kind of get all those dozens of electrical cables from the electrical room to the UV banks.
The building's much smaller than what I thought when you were looking at it
It
straight down
kinda
on it.
seems
Yeah,
like that
the
from
scale,
the
wasn't having that 5-gallon bucket sit out there to change the scale.
Oh, yeah. I see it now.
So next building here is the Headworks building. This is actually the first building. This is the first process when the raw flow gets to the plant. Again, this is kind of a picture of what it kind of will look like. These bar screens extend down through the floor into the flow channel, and they basically separate out all the rags and leaves and heavy debris that you don't want in your wastewater and you don't want in your downstream processes. It pulls those out with a rake, brings it up above into this level, and then it dumps it into a washer compactor, which washes the organics back that actually help in the treatment process and reduce the volume, kind of compacts the volume, and then it eventually will dump it into this dumpster, which can be landfilled. So your plant will have 2 screens, a little bit bigger than this, and it'll actually have 2 washer compactors that both will dump into a dumpster. And then the other thing in the Headworks building, so it goes through screening first, and then it needs to be pumped up the hill to the grit building. And so this is kind of showing what your pump station will look like. There's two trenches of these style pumps, which we call them vertical turbine solid handling pumps. The wet well is below them. It's called a self-cleaning wet well design, which is kind of a nice thing for operators and for maintenance. So those are the 2 things that are going on in the Headworks building. And this is kind of a picture of their current progress. This is by far the deepest structure on the whole site, again, because it's treating that flow from that influent sewer, which is pretty deep. So again, flow, right now they've got the base slab for the wet well area poured, and they're starting to form up the walls and tie the rebar. And they've got all of the rebar formed up and ready to tie for this higher slab, which is where the screens will go. So that's kind of the buildings that we wanted to cover that they've made the most progress on so far. This rendering so everything in red here shows what is at basically 25% or less. So we covered all these buildings, which they're over that, but as you can see, there's a lot of progress left to go. They've done a lot of the work on some of these in terms of the excavations and base slabs, and we'll see a lot more progress happen as these buildings come out of the ground, like Jim mentioned. But I guess it's going to be a busy 2021 for Mr. Maine over here. and then real quick, contract management. Just wanted to show, so it's been busy for all of our staff. So far, we've reviewed, actually going close to 500 shop drawings so far, 102 requests for information from the contractor, 31 proposed change orders that we review and comment on all of them. And the good news there is, so far, like Jim mentioned, we're at a cumulative change of negative 44,000. So it's actually, so the contract amount right now is less than the bid amount. So we're doing our best to kind of, do value engineering and review all their claims. We've had over 20 on-site progress meetings and specialty meetings. We've reviewed over 30 certified payrolls from over 11 different subcontractors. And this one's a biggie. The 8 pay applications doesn't sound that bad, but each one of their pay applications is like 1,000 items long, and they're all $1 to $2 million at least dollars. So we try to do a really good job going through those in detail. It's a tedious thing, but we try to make sure that you're not overpaying for the work that they've done. And then here, we just wanted to show you guys kind of this video that our marketing team helped put together that kind of shows some unique perspectives of the plant. I hope I can get it together. If it works. Yeah.
Joe, do you need me to show you how it works? Okay, just want to make sure. Got it.
There should be a play button.
It was like visiting a theme park.
Here we go. So this is the model that the rendering model that we put together during design. And you'll kind of see as it flies over here, but it shows that model in comparison to what the current progress of the plant is. It's only about 40 minutes long, so it should be over.
We're gonna sell rights to Netflix.
There you go.
So we'll continue to keep this updated. A lot of it now is just, base labs and excavations, but it'll continue to be kind of a cool thing to check as progress continues.
You know, it looks pretty good from here, but I'll bet it's a lot better there in the IMAX.
So I think that's for the most part what we had for you guys.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thank
if
you.
there's questions about construction progress or anything else on the plant?
Actually, I was amazed there's only 15,000 cubic yards of, I know that seems like a lot, but it still doesn't, that's a lot of concrete there. And
Well, when you figure one truck is roughly 10 yards,
Yeah.
so that's a lot of trucks.
Yeah, I just figured there'd be more. Huh. That's cool.
First in the state, we should have, that should be on the state's tourism
Yeah.
map somehow. I imagine you guys will be bringing visitors, seriously, at some point,
Yeah.
prospective customers, visitors down to.
I do like your change orders.
Yeah.
Yeah, knock on wood, like I said.
Yeah.
There'll be some before the project's over, I'll guarantee you. So.
Oh, no, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
This is truly impressive. I was there when you started,
Yes.
along with some of my fellow council
So-
members. This is really exciting,
Yeah,
so.
it is.
Yeah, so we'd like to, again, probably after the mud's out of the way, maybe June-ish, we could have an open house on plant site somewhere, give a tour, maybe a Saturday or something,
Yeah.
kind of walk through and look at the facilities one by one and just get a feel for what's going on. I think that'd be worthwhile for council to take a look at.
That'd be awesome.
Nice. Yeah, thank
Yeah, this is really cool, Pam, you're right. And Greg, good. I mean, heck, Jim and I didn't have gray hair when we started this thing. So.
Ryan?
I just, so Jim and Joe, you guys have worked with in the past. But Jim Main,
Yeah.
I mean, I really want to highlight Jim because Jim has worked on some big projects in our community. The Morlock Lift Station project, he's the point person for the neighborhood. As you all know, we really have been trying to be good neighbors with the folks around that site. Early on in the process, we had there's a lot of dust that came out. Jim and Rick were really Johnny on the spot, working closely with the county, getting that issue addressed. I've had a couple of calls from them, and a lot of it was dust related, but Jim got on it right away, and the issue was resolved. So kind of the guy behind the scenes, but really is doing a lot of important work and making sure residents are taken care of. And making sure that he's out there, making sure that the contractors are doing what they're supposed to be doing too. So,
We appreciate it.
Protecting your
Thank you.
investment.
yes.
Yeah, Thank you, thank
Yep.
you, thank you.
Thank you, guys. It's really been a pleasure working with you.
Thanks, Greg.
Rick, woo-hoo, this is great. I'm pretty excited about it. Ready for a tour?
Not right now, you're not.
You're right.
The best part is you'll be able to run the whole thing from the beach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say so.
Anything else then tonight, we need to cover? All right, then we'll stand adjourned and we will gather again in a couple more weeks.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, Greg.
Bye, everybody.